Hello, and welcome to this new episode of the Telescope of the Unusual. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Aboriginal telephone. I have an English friend, shout out to Barney, hello, my friend, who is a clown, an international clown. I'm not saying all English people are clowns, but in his case, that's his job. But he's also someone with a philosophical and spiritual approach. One day, while he was on tour in Australia, he had the chance and the opportunity to get in touch with an Aboriginal chief. You should know that it's very difficult. They don't mix easily, or rather, they don't open up easily to the rest of the population. This Aboriginal person is named Nanoob. That's his name. And he confided some things to Barney, which Barney then told me, of course. Before talking about the Aboriginal telephone, I do want to clarify a few things. For my part, I've been to Australia twice. It's huge. It's bigger than Europe. But he says that in the past, Australia was a much larger country, but that there were things that cataclysmic events caused a large part of Australia, and I really mean a large part of Australia, to sink beneath the waters. And there are recent scientific studies that have been conducted off the coast of Australia, which tend to prove that, indeed, Australia was once a much larger continent. That scientists once estimated the Aboriginal population at 30,000 to 40,000 people. He says, but that's not it at all. We numbered in the millions. He also says, and this is very interesting, that the population, let's say, of Australia, well, the Aboriginal population, estimated by scientists would be 30,000 to 40,000 years old. He says that's completely false. And what's surprising here is that he gives a very precise number. He says we've been living on this land for 64,000 years. He could have said 60,000 years. That's already a lot. No, he specifies 64,000 years. He also says that human beings themselves have entirely isolated themselves from the natural world. In fact, when we live in nature, he explains that we relieve ourselves in nature, we urinate in nature, but we also shed skin. You should know that a human being over the course of a lifetime will lose about 18 kilos of dead skin, which is enormous. He says that, in fact, this DNA contained in our waste and in our dead skin is absorbed by the soil and then eaten by microorganisms, by creatures, by insects, and these insects are eaten by other animals, and those animals are eaten by other animals. Also, the leaves from the trees fall with our DNA into the water, which are then eaten by fish. In the end, it's in this way, the mixing of DNA and memory that we leave in nature that makes us one with nature, and that's how we can communicate with it. And we've cut ourselves off from that. That's what he explains. Then he says that the first colonists tried to impose a system of time on them, which is the day, the 24 hours, the minutes, the seconds, and so on. He says, but us, we've always measured our time by the stars. White people are terrible at astronomy. We, on the other hand, know by heart, let's say, how it works, and the movement of the stars in the starry skies. That's what he also says. Their main challenge was especially to avoid inbreeding. So they had that concept. They have that concept. That is to say, they wanted to make their race, this is how they put it, stronger all the time. So couples who would have babies had to meet with different families, so things would mix differently and there would be no inbreeding. So there was this idea of knowing about non-inbreeding. That's also what's really interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you about the Aboriginal telephone. You'll see it's really, really astonishing. They didn't have cell phones to communicate with each other. Originally, When a child was born, their placenta was collected and placed around a tree, buried around a tree they called the jara. In fact, the jara is a type of eucalyptus, one of the eucalyptus species from Australia, mostly found in the west of Australia around the Perth region. And he says that actually this eucalyptus will absorb the placenta, so all the DNA, the memory of the baby, of the fetus and the baby, through its roots, and especially through the mycorrhizal system. Scientists are now proving that trees communicate with each other precisely through this system. And they say it can reach up to 300 miles. He says that's completely false. It goes up to 200 miles maximum. So 200 miles is about 320 kilometers. But we're talking about a radius, not a diameter. So in diameter, 320 kilometers makes 640 in some kilometers across, which is enormous. Actually, the tree later belonged to the one in the placenta had been buried around it when he reached the age of 21. So that too. That's very interesting because 21 years is 3 times the alchemical change of blood, which happens every 7 years. They had this idea of reaching adulthood at 21, whereas among the Gnostics, it was something in our regions for us that was recognized at 21 as well. So everything overlaps on a global level. So the young person reached adulthood at 21. When his birthday had just been celebrated, made official, they would wait for the next full moon. The young person would climb to the top of the tree, fit the tree's throne between his legs, and he could communicate remotely like a telephone up to a radius of 320 kilometers with other trees. And he would receive information from other young people or other people who communicated with the trees. That's how, in fact, he explains that people could communicate in a way to set up meetings, share news, say things like, we would like to meet a man or a woman to form unions, to get married, or things like that. He says that, actually, there are 4 categories of people in families or clans. There is the political one, including the chief, the one who makes the decisions. There is the hunter, who is also the warrior. There is the healer, the one who knows about plants and all those things. But also, there was the group that was, let's say, in contact with spirits, with the sky, with mediums, etc. So actually, all their communication was done through the trees. That is to say, for example, they would say on a tree, they would write, for example, meeting. Such moon at such planet at this place, 200 kilometers away, on this day, at this time, and so on. And actually, that's how they met up. It's pretty amazing, but that's how they've always operated. So it's this knowledge of nature that's amazing, but at the same time, it's so logical. Being one with nature is what we've lost. Let me go back to the fact that he talked about, let's say, about the Australian continent, because of its size, that it was submerged. On that particular and very interesting topic, in the second comprehensive volume, a truly remarkable work by the esteemed Immanuel Velikovsky, specifically titled Earth in Upheaval, there is indeed a profoundly insightful and highly recommended chapter dedicated entirely to the subject of coal that I would strongly encourage and advise you to take the time to read and carefully consider. If you take in that chapter, you'll understand a lot of things that happened on our planet at dizzying speeds. And this would also explain how we can find undigested food in the stomachs of frozen mammoths. I hope you found this topic interesting. And I wish you all the best for the next episode if you want to join. Goodbye.